Hello, everyone. My name is Kenny, and I'm the program coordinator at StartSpace. It's wonderful to be here today at day 2 of the festival. It's been so great to watch all the sessions and the discussions happening so far. And I'm really loving their interaction on the chat. So please keep it going, guys. So welcome today to Founder Conversation with Jill Tang, co-founder of Ladies Who Tech, moderated by Shamila Gopalan, CEO and founder of HerWit. Presented today as part of the Future Founders Festival in partnership with Study Melbourne and StartSpace, powered by State Library of Victoria. Before we begin the session, I'm going to run through some housekeeping information for you. First of all, to participate in audience Q&A for this session, please use the Slido Ask the Questions box. This is where you can ask questions for the festival presenters. We'll get to as many as we can at the end of the session. To interact with each other and make comment, please join the conversation chat box. You can also react to the event using the emoji bar, which is along the bottom of the live stream panel. Use our festival hashtag FFP21 to share with us what you're watching and enjoying during the festival today. Thanks again for joining us, and I hope you will enjoy the session. And I'd like to hand over now to the lovely Shamila. Shamila?
Thank you so much. And I'm really honored and excited to be here at this festival. I know you guys had a cracking first day, so hopefully the second day is just as good. Let me just dive very quickly into a 2-second introduction about me. I am the co-founder and CEO of HerWit, which is a venture that focuses on working with female founders for startups as well as small businesses in helping them to start, launch, and scale and grow their business, and basically allowing them to achieve that as seamlessly as possible. And I am super excited to be here with Jill Tang, who is the co-founder of Ladies Who Tech. And I'm going to pass it on to her to introduce herself because she's got a really impressive background. To you, Jill.
Thank you, Shamila. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'm so excited. I was just chatting before. I hope that I can visit Australia very soon when all the pandemic is over. So, very quick intro about myself. So I'm Jill Tang. I'm the co-founder of Ladies Who Tech. So my work is really trying to promote gender diversity inclusion here in China and also Asia. And hopefully, in the future, we are able to expand to the other region soon. So me also, I'm alumni from Australia. So if you've had a chance to look at my bio, I'm a graduate from La Trobe University, Melbourne Uni, and Monash University. So I'm very happy to be here to share my experience and hope that can inspire you a little bit. So, okay, thank you.
That's amazing. My God, you've got like 3 degrees behind you.
Yeah, it's just one of my hobby. Collect degrees.
I know, and why not in Australia, right? One of the world's leading education countries in the world. Well, let's just dive right into it, Jill. I always like to start my interviews, or even when I talk to people, by asking them a very, I guess, quite a deep question and quite an essential question as well. Because for me, I believe that great leaders inspire action. And they articulate their why because they have a purpose and a cause or belief behind what they are doing. And I would love for you to share your why in starting Ladies Who Tech.
Yeah, I completely agree with that philosophy because I think that also applies to personal growth as well. I think in life, some of us probably really know what you want, right? So we call it's very lucky that you know what you want and you choose, and every milestones you have it all got planned out. But for me, it's a little bit different. is I think sometimes is you choose by the opportunity presented in front of you. So for Ladies Who Tech, I was invited by my co-founder when she was visiting San Francisco. She attended 1,000 Women Tech conference, and then she was like, well, when there are all of those women who building cars, who are data scientists, AI experts, astronauts in one room, why we don't have this in China? So by inspired of that experience, she came back to China and she asked me, hey, would you be interested in building, women in STEM community here in China? So I was like, why not? But bear in mind, I actually don't have STEM background. So this is actually a perfect example on I've been chosen on this journey. And then I developed my passion towards to women in STEM during the day-to-day work. But I can elaborate more because it's also related to the local Chinese culture, because I'm a local Shanghainese, grow up here in Shanghai. So sometimes a lot of us do not have awareness of the gender inequality in a certain perspective. And I think if we have some Chinese audience here, probably can relate to that as well.
I think you've hit the nail right on the head. And I would definitely speak for someone who's lived in Asia, in Singapore, in Malaysia, and around Asia, as well as in the US, that it's actually quite a widespread phenomena. Like, a lot of us don't realize the gender inequality that exists within our environments. And I think even more so in the sector that you're focused in, which is STEM, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great segue, because I think one of the key things that you talked about was you did not come from a STEM background, but you were inspired by your co-founder, which is Charlene, and you found your passion. So tell us about your entrepreneurial journey and how that passion that you found had also led you on this journey and led you to become a co-founder of, Ladies Who Tech.
So Ladies Who Tech is my third startup. But one thing that I really, from my journey, is I think every experience counts, no matter it's a positive experience and a negative experience. When you're looking back, then the dots can be all connected, right? But before that, I have never been a follow one professional path, because my formal training is in finance, accounting, and business management. But seems like from all of my past experience, only a small part of the experience play in my finance journey, but the rest is all in different area. So why I started this startup journey instead of continue working in a large corporation when I did went back to Australia, is because as a Chinese international students, when I returned back to China, I had a massive reverse culture shock. I did not realize that, because when I first went back to China, I thought I'm in a pretty good spot because I have international background. I speak multi language, and then with experience. But then I realized it was not the case. So I had a massive reverse culture shock. Then I realized, yes, I am still Chinese. I'm still local Shanghainese. However, my culture identity has already changed, which is not visualized. If I dye my color from black to purple, then you can see it. But sometimes the culture identity, you might not be easily to see it until you feel, oh, why I think in that way, right? Then I realized, oh, I'm actually not the earlier version of me before I left China. I become a completely a global citizen. So that's because the reverse culture shock, I couldn't find anything that I like. So I was like, oh, why not? I'm doing something myself. Then I spotted on a pain points in the market, people like myself, we call Chinese overseas returnees. I started my first startup to build a platform for that community.
And was that Career X Factor? Was that the community that you built?
Yes.
Right. So that was not the only startup that you had. You also had, I think, the Brew Girl And I think one more, wasn't it? You had a few startups before you actually moved into Ladies Who Tech.
Yeah. So basically, and some of them are overlapping. I would say, so Career X Factor and also the Bruegel, you can see a commonality with Lady Who Tech, right? The commonality share is it's all surrounded by community building. So all of my startup experience all surrounded by community building and driven platform. But the previous two, I would say it got failed or I didn't continue is because I think there are a lot of reasons. I think if we have fellow startup founders here, you can all relate to sometimes timing play a really critical role. With my previous two startups, I think the timing was a little bit too early for the market. And then it's a really hard and tough decision for me to move on to something else. But then again, the second point for you is I still have some other platforms which going on right now, and it's more like for portfolio career. If some of you already heard of that terminology, I think if everything you do is what you love and share the same commonality of your passion, purpose, and skill sets, you can actually do more than one platform if you want to.
Absolutely. And I love how I think you touched on the area of failure. As an entrepreneur myself, this is my third venture. I'm actually going to a fourth venture very soon. And I've had ventures that have failed. And like you said, I think everything is an experience and a learning curve, right? So whether it's a failure or a success, you take from that and you learn from that. So could you maybe elaborate on some of your, I would say, best practices that you had put in place in order to learn from those failures and be able to scale your current businesses as well as create this portfolio career that you have?
Yeah. Thank you, Shamila. So I have a lot of, I would say, lessons that I can share with everyone, because I wouldn't say failure, because I used using failure a lot. And then I'm like, you know what? Actually, those are all of the preparation for you to be ready for that platform or journey that you're supposed to be, right? So for me is all of the resources, lessons, or skill sets that I picked up from all of my previous startup experience. Now you can all see the value that applied on Ladies Who Tech. So one thing is, I'm an accounting finance background. I would have no idea how to build a platform. Because of that, my first startup, I had to learn how to build a platform myself. And then because of all of the previous journey as a startup founder, when you don't have a lot of budget or money to hire people, you had to learn the skill sets yourself. And then I need to learn how to even, make a video myself. And then now it's all like TikTok, all of those skill sets you actually can apply even at your personal branding as well, right? But then again, I think back to the core, I think the fundamental is you really need to, no matter what startup journey you are looking to build, you really need to have that minimal viable product, right? That easy to launch and scale and make it extremely well, then think about doing anything else. Because previously I thought my challenge was cash, but it was not the case. If you don't know what you're going to build, even give you cash, you can burn it like overnight, right? So I think it's always like to really thinking about, again, back to the first question, why you started, and then having the MVP, minimal viable product, build it and with the customer research. Otherwise, if you're really possibly build something you like, but not the market needs. So this is something that I would always say you should spend time on. Cash, all those things that we fancy, we think is important, maybe it's not really important.
That is a very, very wise piece of advice. And I have to say, it actually kind of resonates a lot right now for me personally, because I'm working with a incubator and an accelerator with RMIT, and we work with approximately up to 10 to 15 startups. And what you've just said in a summary, which is your MVP is crucial, just something to take to market. having traction, meaning, gaining that traction, kind of understanding if this is a product that people want, or is it just something you think you like? Because at the end of the day, it's not about you, it's about the customer and the research that goes behind it, even before asking or thinking about cash is so important, as opposed to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you've seen this in China as well, tend to want to raise capital or need money and funding even before the fundamentals are in place. Right? So
yeah,
I think this is, yes, and I think this is great advice. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, so it's really coming from the hands-on experience, because a lot of time, especially when I have a business management background, and also I was in a large corporation. Sometimes you do have a habit of having a perfect strategy and plan, but sometimes when you're a startup founder, you cannot wait until your product is 100% ready to launch. You have to, because I really believe the clarity is through engagement, especially in China. You just need to do it.
Yes.
Then you pivot and you optimize your product. And then maybe after you launch the 70% ready product, and you realize, well, you have to maybe completely pivot and become a new model, a new product. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think this is a great segue moving into the sector that you're focused in right now, which is STEM. Could you maybe talk a little bit about what do you think the challenges or the environment is for STEM for women specifically in China, and even in Australia, and possibly even globally?
Yeah, I think I will share my observation in two perspectives. I think globally, no matter where you are, we all facing the same challenge, which is, I think it's because of the unconscious bias and the stereotype on women are not good at in math, or and also because of the historical reason, in a maybe say 50 or 100 years ago, women are more in the role of looking after kids, and now it's completely a different era, and it's a completely different world, right? So I think this is a universal challenge, and also it's all built in the system, because everything was built in the past 100 years. It was all built by man for man. Absolutely. So that's why the system also needs a bit of time to really shaking up, to slowly to change it. Say, for example, the searching bias algorithm, how you even now you type CEO in Google, you still have like all pictures of a man there, right? So I think that's a stereotype, unconscious bias, and also the historical data. So this is more shared commonality of the challenges that the top issues that are global have. But come back to China is a little bit different case, because we recently did our white paper to understand the Chinese working women under the digital economy. So we had over 13,000 sampling, which is really big sampling size, to understand exactly what's happening under the digital economy. And we surprisingly, we find the digital equality in China is actually doing really well, and even more advanced than a lot of developed country, right? So the ratio of men and women is using able to reach out to internet is 51 to 49. It's quite equal. And even the learning as well, say city like Shanghai, we call it first tier city compared versus to fifth tier city. It doesn't make a difference for women who are interested in learning online digitally, because 68% of women are keen to learn online, and they all have the facility if they want to do it. So again, because of that, a lot of men and women in China, they don't see the needs or the challenges of women in STEM facing, because they don't realize it. They're not aware of it. The leading players here in China who are really making an effort, focusing on trying to promote gender diversity inclusion in STEM, is more the multinational companies, because they have the global headquarter, has a placed it as a top business strategy, and then it's rolling out. And then the China CEOs, and then the culture-wise, it's part of the whole global strategy. So that's why they are the leading ones to taking actions. However, in the past, because we started in 2017, right? 2017, people still think, oh, it's a fancy, nice to have, it's not a must thing. But because the data tells its own, more and more Chinese local companies now, because digital economy, I can only speak of Chinese data, because 39% of GDP of China is coming from digital economy. By 2025, maybe it will raise up to 50%. I think globally, by 2025, maybe even 60% of the GDP will be coming from digital economy, right? Then you will realize in China, in my past 4 years working experience, is no matter you're multinational companies or you're local Chinese companies or your traditional companies versus to internet companies, they all share a same commonality is 75% your digital product users are women, okay? But in your digital or your tech team, 9 men and 1 woman. So imagine you have men design product for women to use. It's possible, but it's definitely not the best, I would say the best experience, right? So data tells the company, we really need to looking into the space of how can we promoting women in STEM. So in 2019 to 2020 now, I can see from the general women empowerment in 2017, now in 2020 to 2021, everyone is talking about women in tech.
Those are some really strong statistics. And it's really interesting to see how tier 1 cities, which are obviously your key big cities, compared to all your other tier cities, have such a difference in terms of, I guess, the perception of inequality between the genders and also what needs to be done. So there's a little bit of I think imbalance between across China, and you can't actually look at it as a homogeneous problem, correct? You have to look at it as a silo depending on where you are, what industries you are, and what you're involved in. Am I right to say that?
Yes, because China is huge, so
Yes.
It's not really a one market. You cannot using one strategy to apply in one country. You have to really localize even in the cities wise. Shanghai might be different with Beijing, right? So even tier 1 cities, there's a difference in between. I think digital equality wise, China is overall doing well in terms of education, put women at a workplace, right? But the differences would be more depending on the region because each city maybe have a different focus, right? Shenzhen has a hardware tech hub, and then Shanghai is maybe more business lifestyle, and in other cities probably will be more manufacturing. So it's really depending on the culture, where those companies are to dominate the industry. And then you will see, what kind of digital skills that women needs to be happy, successful, and be able to really fulfill what they want to do and maximize their passion and also their strength.
That's really significant, and I'm really thank you so much for breaking that out, because I think a lot of people have a perception that a country is homogeneous. It's the same as like Asia or Southeast Asia is homogeneous. We are not. There are very different countries in between. So it's really good that you put that into perspective. I think this is a good also segue to move into what you've said earlier about when you had come to Australia, studied here, spent quite a bit of time here, and then gone back, and you've got a little bit of a reverse culture shock, because you've kind of seen people from different walks of life and experience different things. I guess the question is, how do you feel the Australian, I guess, experience as well as the education in Australia has contributed to your journey so far?
I'm super grateful that I had this opportunity to have this experience, which opened my eyes, and I picked up the different cultures because, of course, Melbourne is a very multicultural city that you're able to meet people from all over the world. And you can say, for example, enjoy amazing Chinese food in Melbourne, right? Maybe in Europe, for the Chinese who study in Europe might not be as lucky as me to be able to even have like a same quality of the Shanghainese food in Melbourne, right?
Yes.
But that's on top of that. I really think the culture is. I also shared with actually the Australian embassy back to China last week in my conventions. One of the attitude towards life is very chill. This is being part of my DNA and my personality. Being with me, and that's how I apply at work, and also in a relationship, in a personal relationships and everything. So I'm very chill and then straightforward on what I want. So that made me being quite authentic on what I wanted, being real. But education-wise, yes, it's complete. I might not having now applying on the formal training like finance or accounting or business management. But of course, those skill sets that have been contributed into all of my journey on building my startup business, but also the relationship that I have established in all of those journey, right? Still being contributed to nowadays on if I needed anything from Australia, I can always reach out to my MBA classmates, my professors. I still having a really good relationship with them. That's why I'm actually volunteering, being a president of the MBA's alumni chapter here in Shanghai for the past 7 years, because I still want to stay in touch. And because of my education background, that I'm able to get help from Australian government here in China is when I started my first year 1,000 Women Convention in 2018, we don't have any track record on branding awareness and also data. People will ask you, how many people are going to come to convention? I would have no idea, right? My dream is to have 1,000 women, but I don't know if I can make it. But I think the Australian China alumni straight away just say, Jill, we'll support you. So they were the first sponsor, jump out and say, hey, let's do it. And now for looking back, every year they involve, and this year as well. So yeah, this is not only the experience personally that I have grown to a global citizen. Secondly is really skill sets and also the culture, but as well as the tangible actually help and network that I've got out of this experience.
Yeah, and I think the network bit, a lot of, I guess, founders or entrepreneurs, or even if you go into the corporate world, doesn't matter what your journey is, the network that you build along the way really is a huge factor in getting you to where you need to go as well. And it's shown really clearly with your 1,000 Women conference, and no one else wanted to back you. It was that network that you leveraged on and that relationship that you had built from Australia, taking it back to China. And that was like one of your foundational support systems. So, I mean, I personally as well feel and have experienced this throughout my career journey, or even starting my businesses. Your network is actually key, because those are the people who are going to come in and support you and give you that first helping hand that no one else is going to. So
yeah, adding on to that, networking skills also developed through my experience in Australia, because Chinese probably might not be used to that style. But I think the experience I've got and understand the importance of networking was the day one that I've got told from my business class. So then I applied in my life, and it's really been very helpful.
Fantastic. What we've got a really interesting question here from the audience, from Melanie. So she's got a question for you, Jill. How do you deal with the idea of perfection, and what are the tactics that you find helpful to overcome the feelings of imposter syndrome? This could be whether you're male or female, but I know that a lot of women actually have heightened amounts of imposter syndrome, because we always want to do things 100%, while men can actually, go 60% and go, I think this is good enough, and then, jump in. But women always have this, I need to be 110% before I apply for a job or, do anything else. So like, how do you deal with that idea, Jill?
I love that question because I think there's no perfectionist. There's no perfection actually, exist in this world. So I think it's not only apply on the work, your career, or your startup. I would say you try your best on play everything that you can, but sometimes the result is really out of your control. As long as you have made the effort that you think you already try your best, then sometimes if the reality is not play in your favor, that you just need to sit with those challenges, observe it, and then really figuring out, either the opportunity of that result that you don't like, or just accept and be the friend with the favor that you don't like, right? So this is really, I have applied in my life as well, because sometimes there is a unnecessary anxiety. Sometimes you're looking at we have WeChat here, and then Facebook or whatever, or Instagram, you look at your friends, same age, wow, they already get round A, round B investment. But you know what, you guys not playing in the same, you don't know their family background, education background, and then all of the other things. So never using other people's benchmark to measure your success and what you need. It's good to see what's going on and happening outside of the world, but always come back to your why you do what you do, and focusing on yourself. Never ever to take into all those unnecessary anxiety and apply other people's success, so-called success, in your journey. Yeah,
I love that. I feel like you're my soul sister right now. You're absolutely right. We've got multiple questions here, so I'm going to run through them really quickly because they're really good ones. Here's a question from Amir. Having founded multiple startups, any advice on how to succeed on my first? When do I pivot or persevere in putting in the work and making it happen if you believe in it? So basically it's, how would I succeed if it was my first startup? What would I do?
So I think there's a lot of supporting system, especially if you never started a startup before. I think there's a global, universal supporting system you can get access to. Is I'm pretty sure in Melbourne you would have a Link Startup Weekend or Startup Grind, or a lot of the local ones or international community that you can go in, and then you can to bring your ideation to reality as an experiment. To try in those platforms, right? And then even with that, you probably even potentially finding your co-founders through that network. So that's one. First step is to really going to the supporting system and try out from to really make your ideation to reality on those platforms with literally no cost, right? So secondly, if that comes to something more tangible, then I think you really should sit down and then work with your co-founders, and as I mentioned before, to work out your MVP and then really bring that to life. So how to define success? Because everyone's product and startup solution is different. I cannot give you a so-called correct answer, but just start doing it.
Yep. 100%. And Amir, I mean, like Jill has said, there is a lot of platforms in Melbourne, Launch Week, Startup Week, Startup Grind. There's a lot of help from government as well as state government. So go out and look for that. A lot of accelerator programs as well. So you have the universities that have them as well. So reach out and apply for that. We have this really interesting question, and it might be our last one, depending on how much time we have. Is it possible to explain how your startup helps to change communal perceptions and encourage women to go into STEM?
Yeah. So we actually have we will call it product and internet mindset. What that means. means we are not event management company. We're doing events, just raise awareness. It's important. You know, a lot of time people confuse us on, oh, are you event management company? Seems like you have a lot of events. Events is only a way of for us to building community, raise awareness, and then the marketing activities, right? It's only of that one of the tool for us to do that. But how we do it is, one is we launched our first China gender D&I app, where company can promote their gender D&I policies as an employment branding. Secondly, they can post jobs, which they can using as a vertical platform to attract more women in tech talents. Third one is digital upskilling, is we would have digital courses listed on our app that women can get on there and then pick and choose whatever the digital skills they wanted to sharpening, right? So that's our tool and a tangible platform for us to empower or deliver what we're trying to do. And then secondly is as I mentioned, we launched our first white paper that this will be the thought leaders and data, hardcore data for us to speak to government and speak to companies. And then we will influence them to place a policy, because policymakers are extremely important. So that's why you need something, especially China, they more looking at data, right? You need the data to convince them why they should do it. So that's why we did this white paper, and hopefully the policies can be in place in all the systems to make the change.
I have to say, the way you've actually structured how you're going to roll this out to the point that you've hit the nail on the head. Policy is core. It needs to come top down and down and up. It can't just be one way, right? Because it's an entire ecosystem to create any kind of change. So I love how you've launched white paper and data, and most of all, I think what I love is that your sense of everything goes back to community. That is really and across all your other businesses as well. And I have to say that's very empowering. We might have one more quick question that we can ask you, and then we would have to wrap. Someone has actually said, I'm pleased to hear that you say that you can do work on multiple projects at a time. I believe that's true. How easy do you find it to divide your time between these multiple projects?
It's definitely not easy. But again, I think one, I don't want to create a illusion of we can do it all, we can have everything, because I have to say, because I don't have kids, so I do have that advantage to have more time to do what I want to do, right? So I don't want to create illusions, say, everyone can do it, because startup it's a lifestyle. Not everyone can be a startup founder. If you think a corporate is the platform for you, go for it. If you think working for a startup is for you, do it. So it's a lifestyle that you decide to choose whether it's suitable for you, which it is for me, right? And secondly is I have basically do what you love. So once you do what you love, you don't feel like it's a work, then you will be able to manage your energy, not time, because time is fair for everyone, 24 hours and 7 days. If you do what you love, you will always have a continuous a high energy for you to continue to do what you love, and you want to make a difference. So this is how I manage it, because I don't have a step 1, step 2, step 3, because it's very different for every individual. But if you're doing what you love, and then to and apply the same strength on all those platforms, you definitely able to do it. But not saying you have to do like around 50 companies, at one time. It's just impossible.
Well, that is spot on. And thank you so much for that. And thank you for being so realistic about it as well, because there's a lot of people that go, oh, you can do it all. You can have a family, you can have this, and it's not possible. Like, I don't have kids either. So my whole dedication, my time can go into building my business as well. And I totally respect women out there who can do multiple things. So I would say that what an amazing conversation today, Jill. Thank you so much. I think we're going to wrap it up for today. And thank you everyone for attending and coming. And if you have any questions, do send them through. And I guess either one of us will get back to you even after the session. Thank you. Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Shamila. There was a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I really love it, and lots of really beautiful advice as well. I think do what you love. That's a great advice for anyone, really. And I'm really thankful as well for the audience for all of the great questions that have been coming in. We really, really appreciate it. A final message from us before we wrap up, especially for those in the audience. If you've really enjoyed the festival so far and you've got a business idea that you'd like to develop, why not join the bootcamp, which is coming up in September? So the Future Founders Bootcamps, they offer you a deeper experience to join a small cohort of specially selected students over a 2 weeks period to develop your idea with the support of coaches, mentors, and the StartSpace team. The sessions are part-time, so you can juggle them around your other commitments. The application will be open soon. Please ensure you've signed up to the mailing list to get an alert. That is all for now. And again, thank you again, Jill, for your time and beautiful advice. And thank you again, Shamila. Really great conversations and questions there. And everyone again for joining the session. So see you and enjoy the rest of your festival. Bye-bye.